Good morning and welcome to GM Tips. This is GM Rick here coming at you, and I hope you're having a great week this week. Again, you'll hear a little bit of little Einsteins in the background, my little mini GM. I keep busy as I talk with you guys. So let's talk on a very controversial subject. And again, it's not necessarily controversial because of its setup, it's just people's views on it are very different. And GM's views are very different on this as well. And we're going to be focusing today mainly in fantasy game systems that have the concept of alignment. And so, why alignment? I think because doing a deep dive into it to better understand maybe why is it put into game systems versus people's complaint of remove it altogether. We don't like the idea of an alignment. We want to kind of run the character how we want. And I can understand that point of view and appreciate it, definitely. But there was a reason why it got put into game systems. And so we'll discuss a little bit on that. And I will say, in prefacing this from the very beginning and really working with you guys on this, to say that we should do an unbiased point of view, let's be realistic. I had a history professor that I love who put it very well one time when we talked about how history should be unbiased and written from a point of view of neutrality. And he laughed at me when I kind of addressed that with him a little bit. And he said to me, Rick, you know what? He says, I served as an OSS officer in World War II. He says, I was German in background, but I served the Allies. And let me tell you, Rick, that my class is going to be taught from a very biased, very selfish point of view, because you're going to look at it through my eyes and how I looked at it. And so in saying that, I'm going to share a lot of material, but at the end of the day, realize my biases are going to come through on these casts, whether people love them or not. It makes us who we are. Our personality, our feelings, our biases create who we are and help us to be effective at what we do. To say we're unbiased as a DM or GM, that's never true. We're always biased in some way, shape, or form. So just realize that. And again, I know I'll probably offend a few of you. That is not my intent. But in discussing such subjects, someone will always get offended. It's like politics and religion. When you discuss such sensitive subjects, someone is always offended at the end of the day. But I think it has to be done because so many new GMs and DMs are coming into this very wonderful world of alignment, or as some people say, the quagmire of it. It just depends on your point of view. So let's take a little bit of a look at alignment. And I'm going to use as my source material again because I don't have the 5e books in front of me. Unfortunately, 5 years, I'm sorry, but I don't think they vary that much in definition. I think the definition has passed from Gygax's chainmail all the way up to now. So I don't think it's changed a lot. Maybe some little things have been added, but it's pretty much stayed the same. And in your books, you've got your table of alignments and your squares of alignments. And in understanding them, I'm going to read a little bit from the material because I think it's best laid out, reading it and then discussing. It says, occasionally the rules refer to steps when dealing with alignment. A creature's alignment, I'm sorry, let's go away from that. I read the wrong part. Oops, sorry. Alignment is the general moral and personal attitudes that are represented by a creature. Lawful good, lawful neutral, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, lawful neutral, lawful evil, neutral evil, or chaotic evil. Alignment is a tool for developing your character's identity. It is not a straitjacket for restricting your character. Each alignment represents a broad range of personality types or personal philosophies. So two characters of the same alignment can still be quite different from each other. In addition, few people are completely consistent. All creatures have alignment. Alignment determines the effectiveness of different items and how creatures react to them. And so, in going into all this, why alignment? Because it helps to flesh out the thinking, the moral thinking, the compass, as well as the attitudes and the beliefs and the personal decisions of a character or a creature. It's used as kind of a tool. Think of it, if you guys have ever heard the system of Briggs-Myers, the mother-daughter team, they did things on personality types, similar to alignment, but different. It defines out who we are. Now, I know there are the creative types in all of us, and most times we creatives don't like to be confined. We hate confinement. We want to be creative and out of the box. And we see alignment as a way not to be creative. And that's not necessarily true. And what it says here, and even in the very definition of what they laid out, it is simply a rule of thumb that helps you to kind of concoct in your mind how your character will react in given situations. It is not meant to be a straitjacket to smother a character. So keep that in mind as you use alignment as a GM. What you're trying to do is gain an idea on NPCs that you are playing and your characters, how their gods would view their certain points of decisions and moral compass, especially if you've got divine types, so clerics, druids, and in fact, paladins, and in some cases, other types of holy warriors that your system may come up with. You have to look at the alignment is kind of the compass of how their deific worship and how their deity looks at them and how they worship that deity and how they live their life. It's funny, if you look at it, and I really love the fact that Paizo took so much time to really go through their gods. One of the things they talk about is Pharasma, and Pharasma is a goddess of death and life. And prophecy, forgive me, prophecy is another one there. But what she does, she's got a place called the Boneyard, and all the rivers of death run straight through the Boneyard. Why is that? Well, if someone was steadfast and it's clear what their alignment was, they can bypass the Boneyard. In fact, it's kind of a fast track through the Boneyard to get to wherever your plane is for your next part of your life. Pharasma, however, arbits those who have had shifts in alignment. Why is that significant? Because people can shift in what they believe. So just because you start out a certain way doesn't mean that you will end out that way. So let's take a look at that. If you think about what's going on here. So if you think about it, sorry, a little break in there. If you look at alignments and how people are, we often start out our lives one way, and over time our belief system evolves and continues to evolve. Some people stay very much to a straight system of belief and don't change much throughout their life. Others change tremendously and go from one belief to another. So alignment can shift, and it's not necessarily a bad thing unless you're a divine type that you are associated with your deity, and your deity has an issue with you shifting your alignment. So let me give you, for instance, you might start out as a paladin of St. Cuthbert, and I'm picking D&D 5e for you, 5 years. You start out as a paladin of St. Cuthbert, and you are working through things and doing things by the letter of the law, and you are following what is absolute good. But over time, you realize that some of the laws aren't so wonderful, and that personal freedoms may have a better impact on the world. In fact, especially in places where there's tyrannical governments. So your belief shifts a little bit. What does that mean? You may not end up in the lawful good plane at the end of your existence. You may end up in chaotic good or neutral good. And that's where alignment helps to determine it. You didn't necessarily lose St. Cuthbert as your deity. St. Cuthbert still appreciated the fact that you loved the tenets of St. Cuthbert and that you followed them. Now, albeit you may have been a little more creative in how you did it. And so, does the deity punish you for that? Not necessarily. And that's where you as a GM can have a little bit of a leeway if you choose to. You don't have to. You can be very strict letter of the law for the deity. And so That's what I'm saying. Alignment has a lot of things that go with it, but it's determining a personality of a person. And so when you're thinking about such things, you think about, why do they make the decisions they do? What drives them? What are the motivators? What colors their personality and their beliefs and their decisions in life and their moral compass? That all plays in. And so a character's alignment may start one place, but then eventually it may evolve to another place, and that may not be a bad thing. A thief may start out as chaotic neutral, totally random and creative on how they do things, but over time they may see that chaos harms people. So there's a methodicalness. They become almost a Robin Hood type, where they are trying to follow a certain specific good. So they go from chaotic neutral to neutral good because they see that they can use their talents to help benefit people instead of just benefiting themselves. Or they can go to true neutral. They may think that, you know what, I'm not either creative or against the law. When I need to be, the law suits me and I will follow the law. In other places, I choose to be more creative. And that's where the neutral comes in. So understand you can go a lot of different ways with this. That said, let's look at what they define the different alignments, because I think that's important, and to discuss maybe a little bit about each. So you have 9 alignments that they give you on the axis. The first one I'll hit is lawful good. So what is lawful good? The definition in the book says, the core rule book of Pathfinder says, a lawful good character acts as a good person is expected or required to act. Yes. She or he combines a commitment to oppose evil with a discipline to fight relentlessly. They tell the truth. They keep their word. They help those in need and speak out against injustice. A lawful good character hates to see the guilty go unpunished. A lawful good combines honor with compassion. So there's an honor system. Now, how strict is an honor system? It depends on the god. For instance, we have a paladin in the campaign I'm running, okay? And he wanted to do a unique twist. The character, he says, I want to follow Caden Kayleen. In fact, I want to have Caden Kayleen come to me sometime early in my career and help me to see the injustices of slavery and oppression on the people of the world. So he is lawful good. However, Caden Kayleen, being a chaotic good and a creative, allows him, in my mind, a little more creativity on the law portion of it. So he vacillates a little bit more when it comes to the law portion. The good, he doesn't. The good is absolute. And that is the thing there. The better good of the people is what Caden Kayleen serves. But Caden Kayleen is sometimes a little bit erratic. So the paladin's a little erratic sometimes. Now, does he oppose law? Heavens no. Where the law makes sense, he is absolutely behind the law. And in fact, in a lawful good city, he would stay with the laws and try not to break them. However, in a lawful evil city, very different. Especially if they're using their tyrannical system to oppress and enslave people. Then his law becomes a little bit more murky. And so is that a bad thing? Does that automatically throw him out as a paladin? Some of you as GMs would say yes, and some of you as DMs would say yes, abso-freaking-lutely. The paladin must walk the line when it comes to honor and compassion. I don't know. That's where I differ as a GM. And I've come to that because I've looked at the gods and I've said, okay, any good god can have a paladin. And most neutrals can have a paladin as well. Because a lot of times they are following the law. So any lawful neutral can do the same as a god. Maybe not a true neutral, but a lawful neutral. So could Pharasma have a paladin? No, most likely not. Because she is about balance of life and death. Now, yes, she has neutral goods that follow her. But lawful goods, Pharasma's a little less determinate on the laws of the land. She is much more about the creativity. So, a little more tougher to justify there, maybe. Though some of, if you look at the inner sea faiths, they have hit some areas with some gods and goddesses I really love and appreciate. And they've given some anti-paladins to some chaotic neutral gods and other gods that are neutral that I think makes it really interesting. So, lawful goods. Again, lawful good combines honor with compassion at the end of the day. Does it have to be absolute? That's up to you on your compass. Not everybody's absolute. Even in a Briggs Myers, people vacillate. Like I am ENTJ and ENTP. So, and I do have the intellectual that sometimes comes in. So I'm a little bit, and you have to look up those. I'm not going to go through all those with you, but it just tells you people do vacillate a little bit, as do characters. Does that necessarily mean they're going to be kicked out of what they do? No, not necessarily. Unless a paladin goes way against the good and way against the honor, I don't see that as necessarily something that throws them out or disqualifies them. Neutral good. Neutral good character does the best that a good person can do. They are devoted to helping others. They work with kings and magistrates, but do not feel beholden to them. See, that's the difference in the honor and the non-honor. Neutral good means doing what is good and right without bias for or against order. And that is really true. A good, and I think that's sometimes, honestly, the most difficult player to play is a character, is the neutral good and the neutral evil. Neutral good is about the absolute good, no matter how you accomplish it. Sometimes law works, sometimes creativity works. It just depends. Honor sometimes overweighs creativity, and creativity sometimes overweighs honor. And sometimes in either case, neither one is justified. It is about the overall good. Good example of that. Saren Ray, and you guys have got them both in both in 5e and in Pathfinder. Saren Ray is a imperial angel that transcended up to godhood. She believes in trying to bring good about in people and giving everybody the chance to become good and find the path of good. And that is truly a good heart. A good heart says, look, I want people to be helped. I want people, even if they're evil, I want them to find the path back from the evil. However, if they are irrevocably set on the path of evil and corruption, and they're not coming back, then we got to do away with them for the greater good of the world. It's a really good take, I think, on a neutral good. Now, again, subjective to GMs and DMs. You guys can flavor the neutral good a little bit, but the underlying idea is that good is what a neutral good pursues, and the better interests of the people and the better good of the people. Chaotic good. A chaotic good character acts with as his conscience directs him, with little regard for what others expect of him, i.e. the creative. He or she makes his own way, but has a kind and benevolence to them. They believe in goodness and right, but has little use for laws and regulations and the restrictions of the government. They hate it when people try to intimidate others and tell them what to do. They follow their own moral compass, which, although good, may not agree with that of a society. A chaotic good combines heart with a free spirit. I use the word creative. Free spirit is another great way of putting it. It's the person in life that, yes, good has to happen, and the greater good of others and the compassion of others is there as the guiding light, and that is the focus there. However, how that's accomplished, very subjective. In fact, coming up with non-restrictive ways of doing it. See, the difference between a neutral good and a chaotic good, neutral good can tolerate law. They don't mind it when it makes sense. Order and law, perfect. Chaotic good, shackled. I don't like it. It confines me. That's why, and forgive me, I hate the term chaotic good murder hobo. That's BS. Anybody who does not understand a chaotic good says a chaotic good will murder for good whenever. They're just random. No, You have way missed the mark if you think. Now, yes, some chaotic goods can take that stance, but if all your chaotic goods are that way, you really miss the boat. For instance, Shellen. I look at Shellen. She's a very creative goddess and and Desna, very creative good. But they're about the beauty and the lovely blending of the chaos of all life coming together and making it a beautiful good. They're about the waterfall and the rain all at one time for the betterment of the people. They're about, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of it's almost a swirling maelstrom in their mind of what's going to come next to bring good. They're trying to find ways, and like Hayden Kayleen. People think he's a drunk. He's not. He loves a good tankard and a good song and a hearty, bawdy little thing at the bar after a win for good. It's the Jim West of like the Wild Wild West. Jim West. Great thing that I would put chaotic good. Jim's all over the map. And especially with Will Smith's adaptation of him. All over the map. But he's about the greater good. He is. And he hates the evilness with no tomorrow. But how he gets to that good, oh, Jim's all over the map. And that's all right. That's kind of cool. It's not necessarily this random killing machine for good. You don't have to kill to be chaotic good. You don't have to murder. You can be quite healing and helping and going through and maybe building a community project or a center that is creative, that has artistry and wonderful beauty throughout it. And that's all coming from the mind, and it's all over random beauty, but it brings the good because people go in and are healed by the catharticness of it. I know, I'm kind of throwing a lot of options out here. Some of you may look at it and go, Rick, I don't know. I don't see that. Expand your mind when it comes to this. That's what I'm trying to say. This is where they're saying, don't be so set. These are rules of thumb that give you an idea, but they don't have to be restricted there. You have some leeway to allow for different things. Lawful neutral. The lawful neutral, and I love this definition, acts with law, order, tradition, and personal code that directing it. Order and organization is paramount above all else. They may believe in personal order and live by a code or standard. And they may also believe in order for all and they have favor a strong organized government. It means you are reliable and honoring without being a zealot. Perfect examples of the extremes of lawful neutral. Let's look at certain realms where lawful neutrals exist where you think they wouldn't. So let's look at, for instance, a realm either in the Forgotten Realms or in Pathfinder where the government is tyrannical. However, the lawful neutrals respect the law, and even in a tyranny, may not seek to overthrow it. They don't love the evil being the director and the harm of the people. However, they do respect the law. And so they will become a part of that machine because law and order is what keeps society functioning. It is what is the cogwork of having people live together without killing each other. It is about the semblance of boundary, but not in a restrictive sense. It is the boundary keeps people from going way out of the line to destroy everything. So keep in mind, a lawful neutral can be about a balancing and harmony of a mind and body. So a monk who's lawful neutral, say it's a monk of Aurori or a monk, I'm trying to think of the god of balance and personal growth in Forgotten Realms. Yeah, I'll think about it sooner or later. But what is it? It can be from simply, I'm going to follow a harmony of life and balance of life in order to keep a balanced body and be at my physical peak as a monk, to I'm going through and making sure trade deals occur in a respectable and reputable way, i.e. Katapesh, where the lawful neutrals of Abadar go through and make sure that all the scales are balanced in such a way that all transactions are done in lawful and in a truly respectful and guideline way to keep people from cheating one another. There's a lot of different ways you can look at a lawful neutral. Some people look at them as lawful stick up their rear. They're not. They're about boundary in order to allow balance to create society. You must have a societal balance in order to keep a society in an ordered way so that people don't destroy each other. Not necessarily in every society, but that's where a lot of these lawfuls will go. And that's maybe a binding factor to them. They love the orderly balance of a great empirical equation. Or, and this is beautiful, you ever seen Soul Eater? If you haven't seen it as an anime, I suggest it definitely. Look at Kid Death. Kid Death is lawful neutral in my mind. Because anything that's out of harmony or balance drives him to despair. He can't function because something isn't balanced right, or one side is not aligned correctly with another, or one eye is off from another, or something else is off from another. Why is there not symmetry? That is another way of looking at law. It's the perfection of the symmetry that law brings. It brings a symmetrical being in life. So there's a lot of different ways you can look at a lawful neutral. You don't have to be, and I guess I'm saying, I'm not necessarily pro-alignment or anti-alignment in a campaign, but understanding the many ways that you can look at alignment can really flavor a campaign and make an alignment-based campaign very fun. So there's a lot of different ways that a lawful can look at life. But overall, they're about order. They're not about the maelstrom and chaos and random things popping up. That doesn't do them well. They don't do well with it. Neutral. I love neutral. Kind of an interesting alignment. A neutral character does what seems to be a good idea. Law, chaos, good, evil. It just seems like a good idea at the time. He or she does not feel strongly one way or the other when it comes to good or evil or law or chaos. I can have any of them. It's called a true neutral in some books, which D&D loves to call it true neutral. Most neutral characters... got singing in the background. Most neutral characters exhibit a lack of conviction or bias rather than a commitment to neutrality. Such a character probably thinks of good as better than evil. After all, she would still rather have good neighbors and rulers than evil ones, which is why a lot of neutrals don't tolerate evil. Still, they're not personally committed to upholding good or evil, and that's the difference. So, though they may not like a tyrannical government or a diabolic or a demonic rulership, they're not necessarily going to perpetrate one way or the other. Some neutral characters, on the other hand, commit themselves to a philosophy of neutrality. They see good, law, evil, chaos as prejudices and extremely dangerous. They advocate the middle way of neutrality as best. The most balanced road is in the long run. Neutral means you act natural in any situation without prejudice or compulsion. So that's a person that doesn't necessarily sit and think about what to do in life. They just go to what seems best. Sometimes a little bit of chaos, sometimes a little bit of law and order, sometimes good, sometimes a little bit leaning evil, and maybe that poison I used to kill the monster might be construed just about out there because the death was horrific. A neutral is about balance. They're about just following the flow of life and not allowing laws and rulerships and honor and outward expressive amounts of creativity. They're going to go with what's best at the time. Now, if you lean too far one way or the other, you fall out of a neutral because a neutral is not going to lean too far any direction. They might do a little bit on either side, but they're not going to do, like for instance, a neutral is not going to go slit the throat of a baby. They're just not. Okay, now, would they slit the throat of a guard that is oppressive, that's keeping them from leaving an area and going to the next stage of their life? Depends on how oppressive that guard is. Depends on how much they're confining them. Depends on if they're being forceful to a level that's unrealistic. Maybe. And again, it's up to you as a GM. You can take that a total different way than I've thrown it at you, because the nice thing about this is there's a lot of variance in any of these alignments. And see, that's why I say, when to those who say the alignment's oppressive, maybe not necessarily so. You just have to understand where the overall makeup is and allow the character to kind of move their way through. And sorry, because one of you told me hand gestures. I do a lot of that. I am a dynamic animated person, so I'll try to watch that a little more so it doesn't detract from the cast. Chaotic neutral. The chaotic neutral character follows their whims. They're an individual first and last. Their values of their own personal liberty is strong, but does not strive to protect others' freedoms. It's about their own liberty. They avoid authority, resent restrictions, and challenge traditions. A chaotic neutral does not intentionally disrupt organizations as part of a campaign to anarchy. To do so would have to be motivated either by good or evil. A chaotic neutral character may be unpredictable, but his or her behavior is not totally random. He is not likely to jump off a bridge as he is to cross it. Chaotic neutral represents the freedom of both society's restrictions and the do-gooder's zeal. Chaotic neutrals tend to be the most interesting, I think, of any of the alignments. They're about their own personal freedoms, more so than a neutral. Neutral kind of follows the flow of life a little more. The chaotic neutral is, I don't want the boundaries of society to bind my personal freedoms to the point I can't be free. I don't care necessarily about the personal good of others, though if it benefits me in the long run, then I may lean that way. We got a thief in our rogue in our campaign that kind of tends that way and is that way. But at the end of the day, if he wants to feel free to take his extra cut of that treasure, he will. And, is he creative in the way he BS's, and will he use lying to his advantage? Of course he will, because it keeps his freedoms and keeps his way of thinking open. Will he be vengeful? Of course. If you did something to stop him or hurt him or take away the things he values most, abso-freaking-lutely. Expect that arrow to hit you in the back. Is he evil? No. He's not going to perpetrate a horrific horror on somebody. However, he might cut a purse here and there if he feels like you're being a real pain in his butt. That's kind of our rogue. And I love him for it. I think he gets and embraces one way of looking at a chaotic neutral. It's not the only way, but it is a way. Some people are about the primordial randomness that keeps popping out of the primordial masses. That's another way of looking at chaotic. Another one may be let life evolve, and whatever comes out of that flourish of the micmash of everything that comes together, that's going to be a great thing for me, and I'm going to love it at the end. Again, chaotic neutral. Chaotic neutral's got a lot of ways you can go, and fortunately, unfortunately, it's just a freedom from restrictions. They don't want restricted, though they don't necessarily love law or good. They're about the self. So keep that in mind. It's a different sort of selfishness than some of the evils, because they're not trying to do it at the expense of the blood of others or the pain of others. They're just trying to get through life. And if you get in my way, then guess what? I'm going to make your life a little more fun. Lawful evil. The lawful evil villain methodically takes what they want within the limits of the code of contact without regard to who it hurts, i.e. tyranny. They care about tradition, especially tyrannical tradition, loyalty and order, but not about freedom, dignity, or life. They play by the rules, but without mercy or compassion at all. They are comfortable in a hierarchy and would like to rule, but is willing to also serve. They condemn others not according to their actions, but according to their race, religion, homeland, or social rank. They are loath to break laws and promises. They will not do that. They make a promise. Now, the promise may not go exactly as you expect, but they will keep the promise. The reluctant comes in part from the nature and partly because they depend on order to protect themselves and those who oppose them on moral grounds. Some lawful evil villains have particular taboos, such as not killing in cold blood, or maybe not killing a child, or not letting children come to harm. See, unless it just can't be helped. They imagine that these compunctions put them above unprincipled villains. Some lawful evil people and creatures commit themselves to evil and zeal of that of a crusader committed to good. Beyond being willing to hurt others for their own ends, they take pleasure in spreading evil and end until itself. They may also see doing evil as part of a duty to run to duty to an evil deity, master, or diabolical creature. Lawful evil presents methodical, intentional, and organized evil. They're about the organization and structure. And yes, they have some compunctions that even they wouldn't cross, which would make them neutral evil, like the killing of innocents or other things. They may choose to oppress the innocents, but by gosh, you don't cross the line and kill them. It's a whole different can of worms. Great example are the Hell Knights in Chelish Empire of Pathfinder in the Inner Sea. Some of those Chelish Knights, and even the lictors, paralictors, and various other titles they use, they've given some examples. A perfect one was of this one gal from Garand. She watched her family talk with some other people of their ethnicity, and they talked about the oppression of the throne. And so the parents got thrown in the collusion. So how did she think? Well, she didn't think her parents should be punished, but the people who talked to her parents about collusion definitely needed punished because they were subversive to the current government. However, when her parents were punished as well, she looked at it and said, I hate it, but they listened to a colluder. So what did they possibly expect but the law to be imposed, even if it meant their death? See, there's your lawful evil right there. Not all lawful evils, but it is a pretty strong definition of them. They are about the boundaries and the laws, but to the point of where law must be imposed at a very forceful and often taking of the rights level to make sure that a society continues to prosper. Neutral evil, and I love this definition. A neutral evil villain does whatever they can get away with. They are out for themselves and themselves alone, pure and simple. They shed no tears for anyone they kill, whether for profit, sport, or convenience. They have no love of order, hold no illusions that following the laws, traditions, and codes would make them better than and more noble. On the other hand, they don't have the restless nature or love of conflict that a chaotic evil does. Some neutral evil villains hold up evil as an ideal or characters or player characters, committing evil for its own sake. Most often, such villains are devoted to evil deities and secret societies, i.e. Father Skinsaw, your mass murderers that don't do it chaotically or random. There is a pushing of the evil and pain through society. Neutral evil represents pure evil without honor or variation. Where chaotic evil, on the other hand, a chaotic evil character or NPC does what they do for greed, hatred, and lust, for destruction, and it drives them to do it even more. They are vicious, arbitrarily violent, and very unpredictable. If they simply were out for whatever they can get, they are ruthless and brutal about it. Getting it. If they are committed to the spread of evil and chaos, that's even worse. Thankfully, their plans are haphazard, and any group they join or form are likely to be poorly organized. Typically, chaotic evil can be made to work together only by force, and their leader lasts only as long as they can thwart the attempts for somebody to topple them or assassinate them. Chaotic evil represents destruction not only of beauty and life, but also order, beauty, and the order on which life and beauty depend so much. Perfect example are some of the gods of just absolute destruction. So, great example in Pathfinder about that is Rovagug, the Destroyer. Rovagug is there simply to cause the world chaos, to make it fall apart in order to see its total demise, which is his purpose. Pure and simple. They don't care the method it gets done. They don't want to do it in a lawful manner because that's just way too constrictive. By gosh, I will randomly dismantle your area however I can to bring the spread of evil. That, in so many nutshells, is a chaotic evil. Very unpredictable, very random at times, very haphazard. Don't have great plans on how to get it all done, but by gosh, they will get it done. So that's kind of the best, a good, well, not the best way, a good way to look at this when you're looking at alignments like chaotic evil. So there's your overtake on them. So why are alignments important? I think number one, alignments are important because that's part of the rules of the system. Love it or hate it, rules of the system give us a framework within where we can operate to create a fun and wonderful environment for our players that's memorable and long lasting, as well as create personalities and NPCs that are very long lasting, as well as player characters for the party. It helps you to give the moral compass of the creature that is interacting either with the party or part of the party that's interacting. That is really keyly important. Number two, alignment isn't necessarily restrictive. It can be, and mind you, it is more restrictive than no alignment. However, that said, there is so much play in alignments. As long as you keep certain base core things in mind, the alignment can take a lot of different forms, and the actions can. Uh, Alignment also determines where you're going to be in the next existence for your character. So if they're going to go on to Elysium or to Nirvana, or they're going to go on to Pharasma's Boneyard, that is all determined a lot by alignment. And even a follower of a god may not end up where that god is because they choose a different, slightly different path than what that god has chosen in the creation of things. Alignment can be a lot of flair and fun because it will guide you in a situation that you may not have the answer, but because you've researched the alignment and understand the possible ways you can act with it, it helps you to find a solution for how an NPC would act or a player character in a certain or given situation that they're put into. So again, keep that in mind. There's a lot of different things you can do, and I wanted to just really take this time to go through it. Alignment is a very deep dive. We could spend another few hours. I wanted to go through the basics so you get a better understanding and give you a little bit more broadening of it. I think more than anything else, if you understand the alignment system better, it helps it to function better. I'm not going to convert you one way or the other. You may decide alignment is the worst thing that you've ever been put into. You may decide that, wow, maybe I had a little not so correct idea on why and where to use it. So I'm going to look at it a little more. Or, yeah, I already do it that way, and I'm going to continue to. In doing this dive, you get a better look at how people use it to predict how an NPC or PC can react or will react, how their deity will react to them reacting that way, and how the rest of society will react. So it's important when you're designing these out to really think about the alignments as it matches up to the background of the player character of the NPC. And really look at alignment as not necessarily a restrictive thing, but it can be a very creative thing. Thanks again, and I appreciate it. I know we went a little long here. I know I did my hand gestures. I'm sorry, folks. And if I covered my mouth at all during the cast with my hand gestures, I'm sorry. I want to keep it connected with you guys, and I want you to have a great week of gaming. Thanks, and see you next time.